The terms victim peddling and playing the race card were created by white government agents and white propagandists to deflect from any legitimate claims against white racism. It's an insidious gaslighting tactic. White social scientists determined that there were two aggravating core factors for the 1960s unprecedented unified black protests. The first being blatant white racism, and the second being that it had caused the collective aggressions of the black masses to reach a boiling point, which resulted in millions of black people unifying against the white establishment. In response to these two findings, rather than changing their racist ways, the white establishment instead merely abandoned its practice of implementing blatant racist subjugation tactics against the black population and started deploying more covert methods that are not as easily recognized nor easily comprehended by the black victims. White racism against black people always works best when the black victims no longer recognize it, because this allows the white establishment to continue its racist subjugating of black people without any black resistance. And nowadays, whenever those of us who recognize those current covert racist subjugation tactics tries to bring attention to them by speaking out, we're falsely labeled as being victim peddlers and of playing the race card. It's how the white establishment now delegitimizes all legitimate claims against white racism. This prevents the collective aggressions of the black masses from forming against the white establishment. This is how the white establishment now prevents massive unified black protests. It's an insidious gaslighting tactic. Black people are the unknowing victims of the most insidious and most elaborate gaslighting psychological warfare campaign in history. The term gaslighting is usually associated with individual abusive relationships in which one person is mentally abused for the benefit of the narcissistic other. However, the white establishment uses the same gaslighting tactic to mentally abuse black people for the preservation of the system of white supremacy. Black people are within a psychologically abusive relationship with a narcissistic white society that gaslights us unrelentingly. Case, point, and proof. All lives matters has never been an ideology held by the white society. Throughout history, they've demonstrated a total disregard for the human lives of non-whites. Their subjugation, murder, and exploitation of all other groups are unparalleled. While labeling all other groups as being savages, the oppressor's savagery remains unmatched by all others. The statement that all life matters is now merely being used as a counter-narrative to deflect against the black population's declaration that Black Lives Matters. It's intentionally designed to diffuse the moral statement of Black Lives Matters while diverting attention away from the issue of white cops routinely killing innocent, unarmed black people. Within this gaslighting system, the grievances of the black population is never acknowledged nor legitimized by the white oppressors. The white oppressors instead always presents counter-narratives that deflects attention away from the protests. Through this process, information is always twisted, spun, and or selectively omitted to always favor the white oppressors. This practice is continued until the black oppressed begins to doubt the merit of our own protest and eventually stops protesting, having gained no grounds on the issue. Here's another example of how the white establishment gaslights black people. For centuries, the white establishment have claimed that they don't object to black protests just as long as it remains peaceful. And to ensure that black protest remains peaceful, the white establishment exalted the peaceful protest movement of Dr. King and marginalizes the by any means necessary methods of Malcolm X within the collective minds of black people by giving Dr. King a federal holiday. That holiday was never created for us. It was created for the benefit of the white establishment. However, when Colin Kaepernick kneeled in peaceful protests against the routine killing of innocent, unarmed black people by white police officers, the white establishment responded by labeling him as being evil, unappreciative, and unpatriotic. That response was actually a gaslighting tactic that the oppressors uses to deflect the protests of the oppressed. This is how the white establishment subdued the kneeling protests by black athletes without ever addressing the issue. They just kept deflecting from it until the black athletes became mentally fatigued and stopped protesting, while the issue of white cops routinely killing unarmed innocent black people has never stopped. The white ruling elite secretly perceived true equality for black people as actually being the erosion of their white dominance. Therefore, nowadays, whenever black people protest any inequalities by the white establishment, rather than addressing those grievances, this gaslighting tactic allows the white oppressors to divert and distract from the protests. This system allows the white oppressors to treat any issue presented by the black population like a can being repeatedly kicked down the street, never picking the can up and addressing, keep kicking it down the street. The true issue is never addressed. This system prevents the erosion of white supremacy by deflecting and distracting from all black protests rather than addressing them. Within this gaslighting system, the white establishment is never acknowledged as morally wrong, and the black oppressor is never acknowledged as morally correct. The white establishment instead continually creating false narratives that deflects from the black protests. This is continued until the black protesters begin to question their own reality. Therefore, instead of unifying themselves against their oppressors, they instead start arguing among themselves about the validity of their protests. This gaslighting tactic is also what's being done when the white establishment claims that when we discuss white racism, they label us as being racist. This tactic shifts focus away from the inequality being expressed by the black population and forces the black population to instead engage in defending ourselves against the false accusation of racism towards whites. Meanwhile, the true issue of black inequality is never addressed by the white establishment. Gaslighting allows the white society to take the position of benign neglect on all black grievances. Benign neglect is an attitude or policy of non-interference or neglect of a situation, which may have a more beneficial effect than assuming responsibility. The white establishment has done absolutely nothing whatsoever to reduce the routine killing of innocent unarmed black people by white police officers. Rather than doing something to reduce the problem, the white establishment has instead resorted to using distraction stalling tactics that allow them to avoid addressing the issue. This behavior by the white society is called benign neglect. They also deploys a gaslighting tactic called whataboutism. That's right, whataboutism. It's a gaslighting tactic that attempts to discredit the protesters' position by charging them with hypocrisy without directly refuting or disproving their argument. When it's continued unrelentingly, it can make the protester question their own positions. Here's an example that illustrates the effectiveness of whataboutism, what it actually is. Imagine that 50 black protesters went to City Hall to protest against the routine killing of innocent unarmed black people by white police officers. The white establishment may respond by continuously pushing the self-serving counter-narrative of what about blacks that kills blacks? Whataboutism. What about blacks who kill blacks? Although what about blacks that kill blacks is not actually a legitimate rebuttal against the routine killing of black people by white police officers who have sworn to uphold the law, many black protesters will begin to question will begin to believe that it is a legitimate one. The mind is easy to manipulate when the victims are unaware of what's being done to them. At the end of the day, 25 of those 50 protesters will return home questioning the merits of their protests. This practice is continued until the black protesters begins to doubt their own positions. Many begin to doubt their reasons for protesting, thinking that if their cause isn't being recognized by the dominant culture, then perhaps it lacks merit. The minds of targeted populations are quite easy to manipulate if they're unaware of what's being done to them. Once the mind has been confused, manipulation becomes simple. The mind will even ignore common sense and rationality falls away, even overlooking hypocrisy and deception. Those who insist that it's ourselves that are now our worst enemies are in fact ignorant of our true reality. Don't be fooled. If the oppressors were truly superior, they wouldn't be working this hard to handicap those who they claim are inferior. Brothers and sisters, time to wake up and see our reality. One love and peace.